Good morning, everyone. Happy Thursday morning to you. Welcome back to Morning Musings. My name is Don K. Preston. I am the president of Preterist Research Institute of Ardmore, Oklahoma. We're currently involved in a thematic study of 1 Corinthians chapter 15. We are looking at the section of this great chapter in which Paul says, "Then comes the end, when he shall deliver the kingdom to the Father, and when he has put all things under his feet, then shall the Son be subject to the Father." Well, we are told by many, this passage speaks of the end of time. It speaks of a time in which Christ will cease to reign. And we're going to get to that in a moment. But before I get into today's video, I want to introduce to you a brand new book that I'm thrilled and honored that J-Don Management has had the opportunity to publish. It is the book, The Last Enemy and the Triumph of Christ by Daniel Rogers. This little book is on 1 Corinthians chapter 15, in case you hadn't guessed, all right? Daniel Rogers is a very, very bright young man, about 24 years old, from Alabama. He just recently went through the trauma of losing his job because of his beliefs that the Lord kept his word and that the coming of the Lord, the judgment, and the resurrection occurred in AD 70. But he has written this book, The Last Enemy and the Triumph of Christ, and I absolutely love his style. His style is simple reading. It is very, very easy to understand, but it contains a great wealth of information. One of the things that Daniel Rogers does in this book is to look at the terms natural versus spiritual, mortal versus immortality. He does a fantastic linguistic study showing that the Bible uses these terms not to contrast the physical with the non-physical, but with the old covenant form of corruption versus the new covenant form of incorruptibility and eternal life, thus demonstrating that when Paul said flesh and blood does not enter the kingdom of heaven, Paul's not talking about this physical stuff right here. He is contrasting the old covenant form of life versus the new covenant. This is an extremely, extremely helpful study. So I'm very, very honored to be a part of introducing this book to you. If you would like a copy, I don't even have it on my website yet. All right? It's that brand new. But if you'd like a copy of it, I will sell it to you at regular cost, $5.95 plus $4.95 shipping. All right? But since shipping is so much, unfortunately, I cannot offer free shipping on this particular book. However, go to my website or send me an email and say, "Don, I'd like to have a copy of Daniel Rogers' book, The Last Enemy and the Triumph of Christ." Send me through PayPal $8. I'm going to save you as much as I possibly can. Send me $8 through PayPal with that note, or send me an email asking how you can pay for it. Your total cost will be $8 delivered. I can guarantee you, you're going to like this little book. It is one of the simplest explanations of some of the key, critical, foundational terms and words in 1 Corinthians 15 that you will find, and you will see that you will have a far, far better grasp of 1 Corinthians 15 than you did before. So, go to, send me an email, say I want to order Daniel Rogers' book on The Last Enemy and the Triumph of Christ, $8 total. All right. Well, we are told that in 1 Corinthians 15, that even though we may have proven that there is no end of time, even though there is no end of the Christian age, okay, we are told, but wait, Don, look. Paul says, He has put all enemies under his feet. But when he says all things are put under him, it is obvious that it is evident, Paul said, that he who put all things under him is accepted. Now that means that the Father put all things under his feet, and the Father was not himself subjected to Christ. Now, when all things are made subject to him, then the Son himself will also be subject to him, who put all things under him, that God may be all in all. Well, there, see, we're told Christ at the end will be subject to the Father. That proves that there will be a change of administration. He will surrender the kingdom. Well, actually, it doesn't prove anything of the sort. Consider this with me. Christ, as the writer says right here, citing Psalms 110, was sitting at the right hand of the throne. He was not yet on the Father's throne with the Father. Now, you have to understand, and by the way, there was a book written several years ago on Psalms 110, pointing out that Psalms 110 is used 32 times in the New Testament, more than any other Old Testament singular text. But the meaning of that is that to sit at the right hand, it certainly signified royalty, it certainly signified sovereignty, but it also meant, guess what? Subjection. It designated a period, pardon me, of waiting. The one at the right hand, while a sovereign, had not yet taken the full authority and begun to exercise the full dominion. He was in a period of consolidation. This goes back to the Roman world, and I don't have time this morning to develop that. But notice this. Was Jesus not subject to the Father in his incarnation? In John 14, Jesus said, "The Father is greater than I am." In John chapter 5, Jesus said the Son could do nothing of himself except what he sees the Father do. Jesus affirmed over and over and over during his incarnation that he was subject to the Father. So when the writer Paul says, when he's put all things under him, then he will be subject, he is not talking about a drastic difference. He is saying that the Son would take his place with the Father. But Revelation chapter 22 depicts for us that now Jesus would be on the throne with the Father. No radical subjection unknown before. Rather, job done, place taken, sovereignty taken, unending rule underway. So even though it says Christ at the end would be subject, there is simply no way for us to deny that Christ was already subject to the Father in his incarnation. He was subject to the Father because the Father had put all things under him. The Father himself was not subjected to the Son, even though all things were. And when the Son came, he would be on the throne with the Father. Well, that's all we've got time for this morning. Thank you so much for joining me for this morning's morning musings. And don't forget, get yourself a copy of this great new book, The Last Enemy and the Triumph of Christ, by Daniel Rogers. You are going to love this book. Hey, thanks so much. You have a fantastic weekend. Be safe. Lord willing, we'll see you on Monday.